Nerd Avengers, what is up? It is Josh, and there is a brand new trailer for The Bad Batch, and I also wanted to do a preview of all of the crazy rumors and leaks that are out there and what we can expect for The Bad Batch in this first mega episode that looks to be over 70 minutes long. So first, let's take a peek over at this trailer, and the trailer, although very cool, does not actually have too much new footage in it. There's a little bit of new footage in it, but it's generally just serving to talk about how awesome and crazy the show is going to be, and it goes over each individual character, reminding you who they are, where their sort of status is as far as the hierarchy of the group. It talks about the leader, the sniper, the muscle, just making sure everybody's on the same page about all of the different members of the Bad Batch. Now, a couple of things that are in the trailer worth noting if you're hardcore Star Wars fans is the fact that it starts with Order 66. The narrator is talking about how some moments echo throughout the galaxy, talking about Order 66. Now, there's a lot of rumors about Order 66 possibly happening in this first episode of The Bad Batch, but more on that in a second. Just something that a lot of people are taking note of, the fact that Order 66 is front and center on this, the last trailer for The Bad Batch. But overall, there's a lot of cool shots of Camino, of Omega, a character that looks to play a very important role in the Bad Batch show and with the team of the Bad Batch. And we see a lot of action just priming us for what to expect for this show. And I think the general sense that we're supposed to get from the trailer is that the Bad Batch is going to be essentially going on the run from the Empire. This is something that's been throughout the marketing, and again, it's just setting up this idea that the Bad Batch will likely have the Empire turn on them. You can kind of see it in these little shots there. It seems like something's going to go down, and they are going to be on the run for the show. Okay, but now let's get into some of that spoiler territory. If you don't want any spoilers or any of the potential surprises from the Bad Batch ruined, check out now. But I want to start with that weird shot in the trailer of Echo and Crosshair. Some people are suggesting on Reddit that this could be a scene having to do with the inhibitor chips, and perhaps the inhibitor chip removal from Crosshair does not go according to plan or isn't actually done at all. And the reason people think this might happen is because weeks and weeks ago there were toy leaks suggesting that while the rest of the Bad Batch would not be Imperial and would just be sort of clones on the run, likely from the Empire, there is actually a version of the Crosshair figure that is Imperial. He has Imperial armor on, and that led people to believe that Crosshair would either betray the Bad Batch or be forced to work against them and hunt them down. So people are looking at the shot in the trailer and saying, hey, maybe it has something to do with the inhibitor chip, and maybe Tarkin and the Empire are using the inhibitor chip to control Crosshair, and all of the rest of them get their chips taken out. Now, there are also new comments from D. Bradley Baker. Holy crap, that's sort of weird to say, but D. Bradley Baker did have an interview where he gave some new comments about the Omega character from the trailers and from the Bad Batch show, suggesting some really interesting things that will take place. So here's what he said here. He said, it's interesting in terms of the story in the writing to have this kind of personal relationship with a younger character and to see how that changes and how they accommodate that and how that works, because it's more of like an uncle to niece or father to child dynamic, but not entirely, because Omega has her own interesting potential of powers. And so it's interesting to see all of that unfold. And then he goes on to say, I think it connects you to the story in a personal way, so it's not just an action story as Star Wars never is. There's a personal story that's also playing out as well that connects you to the entire story. And before those quotes, he hinted at the fact that Omega and Hunter would have a relationship very similar to that of Din Djarin and Grogu. Now, this is a couple of things. First of all, it clarifies that Omega indeed is female. There was some speculation about that, and it tends to enforce a lot of the theories out there about Omega being force sensitive. Now, this does not mean that Omega is just going to be a Jedi or has the powers of a Jedi, and I know there are a lot of ties to the Night Sisters in other types of trailers, including that crossbow or that weird bow that Omega uses. That really seems like something from Mother Talzin's Night Sister clan. And so I think What's actually going on here is that Omega, as well as potentially Grogu, were these very important Force beings that the Emperor had an eye on or was keeping in his purview. But that's just a personal theory. Regardless, it's really interesting that there's going to be sort of a Grogu Din Djarin relationship between Omega and Hunter, and a lot of people are assuming we'll see that happen in the first episode. Something will happen to give you that vibe, to make that make sense, and then they're all going to be going on the run together, and that's really interesting and cool. But also this Omega character having this weird potentiality, which to me does sort of hint at the Force abilities. It makes me think that just like Grogu, there's something really special about Omega, and since all of this is surrounding that time period in Order 66, I'm really getting the feeling that Order 66 will be shown in this first episode. Matt Lanter, who is the guy that voices Anakin Skywalker, has talked about how he's going to be in something very soon, and apparently he is even credited as being a part of the voice cast for episode 1. Some people think it could be a flashback. Other people think it could be an Order 66 scene. And in fact, there is a new article that came out on Slash Films that seems to hint at another Jedi being in episode 1, and this would be Kanan Jarrus. There's a reference to Caleb Doom in this interview answer. Again, this is from Slash Film. It says here, a lot of conversation were had in terms of which Jedi would be there. Who do they interact with? And the further we got into development of the pilot and Omega started to become a thing, we saw this opportunity to do a parallel and bookend the episodes where you witness Hunter's interaction with Caleb and how he's unable to help him as much as he wants to, and how he carries that with him throughout the episode. So then when he gets the chance to help Omega, he's able to see that through to the end. And of course, when Dave Filoni was like, Caleb can be an option, it just seemed like an incredible opportunity. Now that's pretty wild. It actually hints at something to do with Omega and Hunter, and it also sets up Hunter perhaps not being able to help a young Caleb Dune, who of course is probably going to be left alone in the wake of Order 66. Now if you've read the Caleb Dune or Kanan Jarrus comic, you know how some of that works, and so I'm interested to see how that could line up with potentially meeting Hunter. There seems to be a lot of story here that can be filled in and explored around Order 66, but the juiciest part is that we may well see Kanan Jarrus as a young Caleb Dune in the first episode of The Bad Batch. And so, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting too hyped up for this, but I'm kind of thinking you might be able to see some wild stuff in episode 1 of The Bad Batch that might really change some elements of Star Wars forever, set up some very interesting things around Order 66, fill in some of the gaps of Palpatine's overall plan with clones and Force sensitives, and show how important and linked characters like Grogu and Omega may well be to the Emperor's plan and just the canon of Star Wars in general. I'm very excited to see this, as I expect that Dave Filoni is going to set some things up for the future Filoni-verse live-action films that are going to be explored in the Ahsoka show, in the Ranger show, in the Mandalorian Season 3, and on and on. So I'm very excited for The Bad Batch. I think on the surface it's just supposed to be this cool A-Team fun show with dope clones, but I think it's going to be so much more than that, as most Dave Filoni Star Wars pieces of content are. So I'm very hyped up for that. There you have it, sort of the breakdown of the trailer and some of the juice that is out there with regards to The Bad Batch. We are definitely going to be doing a watch party with the Nerdvengers behind the scenes as the show is airing early in the morning, and then we'll be doing a spoiler stream talking about this episode very early in the morning for everybody. Make sure you check out the live streaming channel for that. And as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I will see you in the next video.